There are two basic types of stock options: incentive stock options, otherwise known as ISOs, and non-qualified or non-statutory options, otherwise known as NSOs. The key differences are how they are taxed and some of the relevant requirements. Here's a quick summary of some of those key tax concepts.
The first type of stock option that we're going to talk about is an incentive stock option, also called an ISO. ISOs can only be granted to employees, full or part-time. There are several other rules that must be followed to maintain ISO status, including that the option plan has to be approved by stockholders. There are also dollar limits on the number of ISOs that can be exercisable by any one taxpayer in a calendar year period. There are special rules that have to be followed for ISO grants to 10% or more holders. This is how an ISO is taxed. At grant, there is no tax to the optionee. When the optionee exercises the option, there's no tax, but the spread at the time of exercise can be subject to alternative minimum tax. After exercise upon the sale of shares, if the holding period is met, which is the longer of 2 years from the option grant date and 1 year from exercise, then the spread is taxed at long-term capital gains rates. Upon the sale of shares after exercise, if the holding period is not met, then the spread at exercise, or gain upon sale if less, is taxed at ordinary income tax rates. The next type of stock option we're going to talk about is a non-statutory option, or NSO. NSOs can be granted to employees and non-employees, including directors and consultants. An option that attempts to be an ISO but fails for any reason is taxed as an NSO. This is how the tax works for an NSO. Generally, there's no tax on grant. Upon exercise, the spread is taxed at ordinary income tax rates and is subject to FICA and Medicare, and tax withholding is required for employees. Upon the sale of shares after exercise, any appreciation over the value at exercise is taxed at capital gains rates, long-term or short-term, depending on the holding period.